If you got my last newsletter, something else came up. And again, this just reinforces the idea that you need to wait before coming to a full conclusion for as much evidence as you can find. And here's evidence of the Utah event being staged. The fact that there's like 7 suspects. Like, oh, it was the guy next to him shot him. No, it was the cameraman. The camera was actually a rifle. No, it was the shooter on the roof. No, it was the other shooter on the roof. And if you go down the list, you can see that there's like half a dozen possible shooters. And this reminds me of Book Depository, Grassy Knoll. Oh no, it was Jackie. She shot Kennedy. No, it was the driver. Look at this clip. It's the driver who does it. So you go down the list and you find that there's like 5 plausible suspects. Was it Groypers? Was it Antifa? Was it Israel? Or was it Israel getting a Groyper to pretend to be Antifa? So you go down the list and what you find is this is template. Every single staged assassination attempt follows the same template, where they give you multiple rabbit trails, multiple patsies. Or you have the patsy and then the rabbit trails. Now here's one common denominator in all the different rabbit trails, all of them. They all begin in MSM and they all end MSM plus. So every rabbit trail begins with a premise established by the mainstream and they end somewhere with some additional content, thus the plus. When I say MSM, I'm talking mainstream mediation, the consensus view that we agree upon, the guy got shot. The conspiracy theories are the plus, the additional stuff. Every single one of these events follows a template. The template is evidence of stagery. Even the laughing actors. So, what's more, I've been looking into the concurrent programming in that movie, The Tempest. And so The Tempest came out on September the 10th, the exact same day. And this isn't some minor thing. This is the top film in top series in Japan, Taiwan, Turkey, it's South Korea, top 10 in Canada, Australia, Disney Hulu production, The Tempest. And the opening scene, the first episode, in fact, has a couple of interesting references to the Charlie Kirk shooting. It happens in a church. And the leader of the New Republicans is shot publicly on the left side of his neck, just like Kirk. And there's more intrigue here for conspiracy theory, even including one of the assassin types was up on the loft filming the event. And his camera, the way the director represented it, kind of insinuated a gun. Similar to the camera gun that people are pointing at the Charlie Kirk thing. So you have this parallel in the timing and the exact location of the wound. So that already qualifies as concurrent programming, or an eerie coincidence for the uninitiated. But then it goes even deeper, because after the leader is shot in his neck, his widow takes center stage and takes over. And what happened with Kirk's widow? She suddenly became a character on the world stage. She got up and she gave this presentation, and now she's taking over TPUSA, talking about taking its mission forward, as reported by the Washington Times. So you have the same story as well. You have the assassination and the widow taking over. And it goes further, and I'm not through with it yet, but I can kind of see now the conspiratorial element around the assassination and how that's mirroring these various conspiracy tales around Charlie Kirk. So to be clear, Kirk's not dead. If your starting point is he's dead, your starting point is MSM. If you're off-world stage, if you're objective, if you're a skeptic, your starting point is he's not dead. What's the evidence to suggest that he is? I'm waiting. Somebody provide it. I saw it on TV. So it goes deeper though, because we're talking about predictive concurrent programming hints, things that shouldn't be there. So we already noted that Time magazine has a cover that says enough. And it's got the scene of the murder, which they've already cleaned up. They've already scrubbed the grass. They're already cleaned up the crime scene, which they took down 5 minutes after. No crime scene tape, no police. They just erased the evidence. If there was a crime. If there even was a crime. But Time magazine had a cover that said enough, and it was bloody. Now, we all know the Illuminati playing card, Enough is Enough, has Trump on it. It's got a sniper, and it says, anytime, any place, we can take you out. Have a nice day. So you have the Trump card, the Trump-like visage on the Illuminati playing card sniper. Well, then Hulk Hogan comes out and he says, enough is enough when they try to shoot the president. So we had noticed how enough is enough is a reoccurring phrase tied in to political assassinations and has been for some time. It was used pointedly, even by Kamala Harris right before Trump was hit. So we've noted this. Well, now we see it again. Enough on Time magazine. We noted this. So last night, someone pointed out to me, look at Charlie Kirk's final YouTube short. So I go to YouTube and I go to Charlie Kirk's, and you can get this on my blog, timosman.substack. I went to Kirk's YouTube channel and his final YouTube short is entitled Enough is Enough. I mean, that alone should raise some eyebrows. Enough is Enough is his final upload. So again, the magazine, the card, the pattern, this again is just another hoax indicator. So if you're going to say it's real, you have to deal with all these, and you're going to bring us, oh, here's my list of eerie coincidences that happen to be paralleling every single other similar event and its eerie coincidences. We were talking about how this is the next George Floyd. They're framing, like he was framing the girl in the subway as, oh, this is our George Floyd moment. White George Floyd. And then he dies. Well, interestingly enough, because he was, they said they're trying to create a reciprocal George Floyd moment, referencing Charlie Kirk. So we've been talking about the framing of this, how they turn him into a martyr. They're even using the word martyr, which has religious connotations in a way. He's like a saint now. He's a martyr. They're probably praying to Charlie. But then we find out that Charlie Kirk's birthday is October 14th, 33 days after 9/11, the same birthday as George Floyd. And I had some commenters say, well, there's only 365 days a year. Yeah, but there are no coincidences on the world stage. There's no coincidences in a script. The book ends in the way the author intended. There are no coincidences. It's a script. And one of the hallmarks of these hoaxes and their actors is the birth dates and death dates have special significance. This is a very consistently observed pattern. We're talking about empirical research. This is not conspiracy theory. We're analyzing the world stage script, the so-called meta-script. You know, Ian Fleming said in one of his James Bond movies, it was once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, three times is enemy action. Like there's a point here when the pattern recognition has to mean something. Either you're drawing erroneous conclusions from a vast pool of data and retrofitting it, or you have a point. And what we have consistently observed is a predictable pattern, non-cherry-picked, documentable, and predictable. I even said, if this thing is fake, let's wait a few days because it's going to show up in the concurrent and predictive programming. Then I find out that The Tempest comes out and happens to have the exact scene of Charlie Kirk, and it happened on the same day, got released on the same day. This was predicted by me. I'm not psychic. But I can read the curve, as they say in Leave the World Behind. Commenter says the FBI had to intentionally miss the two shooters who were both on a security team with the camera footage, proof of a second security group shooter, palm gun. Yeah, I saw the palm gun. So something to consider here. Every one of those other alternate shooter theories are plausible. So maybe it was that shooter on the hill, maybe it was the grassy knoll, maybe it was Jackie, maybe it was a driver, maybe it was Umbrella Man. You go down the list. Well, in this case, so they have everybody questioning the main story, but it doesn't help. Like Soul 101 says, I see people questioning it. Yeah, this one is being hugely questioned, but so is JFK. And the question begins with the premise that he died. And the question ends with Israel being the scapegoat, just like they did for 9/11, JFK, and everything else. That's obviously where it's going. I've been seeing memes of the shooter with Netanyahu's face over it, and they're saying it's because Israel offered Charlie Kirk $150 million to not platform anti-Israel sentiment. And Kirk's out there talking about Gaza's being targeted for a genocide. So they're saying he went against them and they took him out. This was reinforced yesterday by Sam Hyde, who said, "We are all Charlie Kirk." And Ierna, the girl from the subway, is everybody's sister. So they want to personalize the propaganda. Then Alex Jones shares it. Like, this is the best thing on X. You must watch Sam Hyde talk about how we're all Charlie Kirk. I'm not Charlie Kirk. I'm not a sellout crisis actor, fake pretend Christian, Pied Piper, emotionally manipulating the youth. I'm not that at all. I'm not a con man and a charlatan. And if you bought it, that's because religions have always been about mind control. He was not a holy man. What he was preaching was just religion. I mean, a politicized religion, or a, this fusion. But like, what I'm saying here is that, I speak as someone who's not a religious person whatsoever. I think religion is just government, mind control, media. It's all part of the same package. So this is a manufactured martyr, and you see people crying for it. So you can see how powerful this propaganda is. They literally created a political religion with MAGA, and now they got a saint. So now you have like Sam Hyde, Alex Jones, and all the Candace Owens. They're all insinuating that he was killed because he was about to turn the youth against Israel. That's why they took him out. So now you have 7 or 8 different possible shooters, and they all seem plausible. Those are plants. So it's a squib. But you have let's have this guy with this special palm gun, make it look like he did it. Let's make it look like the camera is the gun. And then we'll suspiciously tear down the crime scene in front of everybody and remove the cameras and leave a lot of questions. So they created the conspiracy theories. So back to Soul 101's point, people are questioning it, not because they're skeptical, not because they've suddenly acquired some skeptical methodology when it comes to media. No, the reason people are questioning it is because they've been told to. The true believers in the mainstream aren't going to question it, but anybody with any residual critical thinking faculties are going to question it, and they've been prepared for. The authors of the PSYOP prepare for the people who are going to ask questions. So when they ask questions, they're going to say, oh, it was this shooter, it was that shooter, it was this person, and it all points to Israel, which lends credence to the woke right paradigm, which is polarized with the woke left paradigm. It's the same thing as we always see. But now, so today's the 16th, which has some interesting connotations because Charlie and Eric Kirk were doing a countdown to 9/16. Don't know what for. Today's the day. The Turner Diaries, which has everything to do with Turning Point and the Turning Point USA, is, I think, alluding to Turner Diaries, which begins this revolution against the government after the Turning Point when they try to grab the guns. This is the book that inspired McVeigh. Well, the story in Turner Diaries begins September 16th. So there's that. Now we have the burial ceremony, the funeral coming up. So things are just getting more heated. And now we also have the right is sort of resisting, but now there's calls for just basically, let's just shut down free speech. Anybody who said anything mean about Charlie, go straight to jail. No free speech for you, lose your job. And I'm not for incitement. I know the difference between free speech and incitement. However, we're looking at this point we're reaching where mass shooters have been marketed as a threat to right-wingers, and free speech is now being marketed as a threat to right-wingers. So we're seeing this attitude that was usually confined to the far left now happening on the right. There's this unity. We must censor because mentally ill people get guns, and then they'll take all of our guns. They have this all worked out, and I think it's being executed perfectly. Yes, Smeekmeister horseshoes, exactly. Here's your blue wrench. Yeah, Ribo Nation, they're coming for the open web. I think that's ultimately it. They laid the groundwork and convinced people that mind viruses exist, which they don't. You just catch ideas, you don't think about it first. So they convinced people that you can catch a mind virus and it might radicalize you into a a flat earther racist or whatever they're going to say, you catch the virus because you listen to Alex Jones. So they've taken away the idea of agency, autonomy of thought, and that we're all just passive receptacles, so we must sanitize the environment so we don't catch the wrong mind viruses. So they set the stage for people agreeing that we must censor the web for the mentally ill who become threats. Critifus says Trump knew, he knew. Well, look, Trump's being criticized for underreacting because everybody's at that Kennedy Center where they're honoring Charlie, and Trump is out in Bedminster golfing. And they're like, Trump, your friend Charlie just died. How do you feel? Oh, I feel fine. By the way, have you seen the new ballroom in the East Wing of the White House? We just renovated. So it sounds like he's cold. Sounds like he doesn't care. No, it's because he knows the guy's not really dead. Yeah, I saw that. They dropped the terror charges against Luigi, which is also interesting if you look at the story here. Luigi Mangione, left-wing vigilante, kind of a hero to them, and now that he's not a terrorist. Meanwhile, they're suggesting the shooter was part of a terrorist cell. That's coming from the right. But it sends an interesting message, and the timing is not coincidental. Again, Luigi Mangione didn't kill anybody. He's an actor. If you think he really killed somebody, your starting point is MSM. Again, all conspiracy theories begin in MSM and in MSM+. Our starting point is MSM minus, the subtractive view, off-world stage, and skepticism. If your starting point is the event was real as reported, you're going to be wrong. Believing the mainstream or believing the myriad of alternative versions of it. So knowing that it's an actor and it's a play gives you some insight into the next moves. So in this case, Luigi being exonerated of the terrorist threat sends a message of some kind, obviously. And again, you have to remember that the left wing supports political violence, and they support class warfare violence as well. So kill the rich, for example, which was one of the themes in the Joker movie. Kill the rich. But Donald Trump, I'm thinking, doesn't act all distraught because he knows. I think Donald Trump worked or hired Charlie Kirk's father to be an architect for Trump Tower. And then Charlie Kirk's wife was with some kind of reality TV show, and I believe a beauty pageant, which was, I think, owned by Trump. There's some fascinating connections here. These characters are not organic. They're manufactured. Kirk was a character on the world stage, political activist, provocateur, etc. But this was a scripted ending, and every indicator is there, even down to the George Floyd birth date. And again, some will say that's just a coincidence. Well, how many coincidences in a row do you need to observe before you conclude that this is deliberate? And the misinformation that has steered the free thinkers the wrong way for a long time has been lots of coincidences mean that the simulation is involved. No. The media simulators, the propagandists, are involved. No need to look to higher causes for what is a very mundane activity. Yeah, and Discord messages are becoming a huge part of it. They're saying he was radicalized in Discord. There's a Discord group they're investigating. So this is being used as, and also, okay, what was Charlie Kirk talking about the second he was shot? He was talking about violent shooters, trans shooters, which again, right-wingers didn't care about mass shooters. It wasn't an issue for them. It threatened their guns, so they ignored it. And most of the shooters were right-wing Nazi MAGAs like Cruz, or they were somehow associated with fascism and the right. That's been a consistent thing. So they had a vested interest in ignoring those. But ever since Audrey Hale, the shooters have all become leftist, non-binary, and attacking Christian schools. Another element. Why are they shooting Christian schools? Well, now suddenly the white nationalist conservative Christians care. Suddenly they care. So they had to revamp the entire PSYOP to make the right wing care. And they're doing the same thing with free speech. The right wing didn't care. It's like, you can say whatever you want. We need free speech at all costs. X, you got to be able to post your racist memes. So they've turned X into this huge cesspool of alt-right 4chan style memes. But now suddenly you have people on the right saying, well, they're going too far when they're saying mean things about Charlie. Commenter says something about the Bolsheviks. Yeah, I think that's just code. At this point, if you're still in the political horseshoe, you're wrong. If you're in the MSM, you're wrong. Yeah, Inks G, great point. They went from incel to trans. They had to make the right care. And then you'll notice suddenly the left is, this is incredible what they've done. And I saw the trend. They're like, let's start shooting up country music concerts so we can say it's ironic that they're getting shot because they support the guns. But back to the Charlie Kirk shooting, he mentioned trans shooters, and instantly what happens? He gets shot. Then you find out that the shooter is connected to a group of antifa, trans activists or ideologues or something, however they're spelling this out. And I'm saying it's manufactured. It's almost, I thought, there's no way this is going to fly. That they're going to reinvent the bowl cut shooter and make it into this. And the reason they're doing it, I think, well, there's a lot of reasons. It's mainly to make the right care, to make it an issue, a bipartisan issue. And then if you look at what was on the bullets, there was something kind of interesting there. In addition to the take this fascist or whatever, there was the directional inputs for a video game called Hell Driven 2 or Hell Driver 2. And the code is like, if you push up, right, down, 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 it'll drop a 500 kilogram Eagle bomb. So in the book Turner Diaries, the turning point is when they crash a plane into the Pentagon. And that sets off the world revolution where the white nationalists nuke every other continent. So like there's this turning point that begins with a terror attack from the sky with bombs. So you have that referenced on the bullets. And then again, the talking point for days after was, this is the turning point. This is when it turns. And the shooter had that American flag shirt with an eagle on it. And that was worn by one of the vandals at one of the Charlie Kirk shrines. And that was also worn months ago by the activist burning Tesla Cybertrucks. Yeah, the neck. George Floyd, the neck. Charlie Kirk, the neck. The subway killing, the neck. And this has all been, as many have pointed out, likely foreshadowing censorship. Others point out revolution, French Revolution, off with the heads. There's something there, but the throat is highly significant. "33-hour manhunt." And I listen to a lot of different podcasts in this area, and there's one in particular I like. I'm not going to name, but he was willing to talk about this in the context of King Kill 33 and JFK, and he picked up on some fascinating stuff with Macbeth. But he didn't want to go too deep into it because it's so political, and he considers the politics to just be very divisive and disruptive. And I understand that. But in my view, you're never going to arrive at the right conclusions if you don't look at the world stage and the movies. Like, you can't just look at the predictive and concurrent programming in movies. You have to look at how it relates to the world stage. It's a mirror. And you don't get that perspective until you go off world stage. But a lot of people are making some fascinating observations about this from all angles. And a lot of people just practically are saying, hey, why did they take down the crime scene 5 minutes later? You have an assassination, a significant political figurehead, representing a large swath of the Republican base, gets taken out, and they don't put crime scene tape up. So just the fact that we have questions means we need to assume nothing. Which, when I say assume zero, is what I say. I have this blog. My point is, assume zero means if they give you a body count, but you have any hoax indicators, that body count drops to zero. this was a problem that plagued 9/11 truthers for a long time. They're like, well, we don't believe there were planes, but we do think there were some deaths. Well, where? Well, there had to have been some. Well, which ones? Because you got to subtract the plane deaths, right? And the Pentagon deaths. So then how many? And then I'm like, well, then how do these people remain in the building? Here's something for 9/11 truthers. If they haven't figured out nobody died. If you're going to say there must have been people in the towers that day that were killed, their starting point is that people died. I'm like, well, then were they not aware of the 88 drills, the terror drills going on that day? I mean, there were drills going on 9/11 concurrent with it. That would have given them the personnel to create a massive closed movie set. So you're not going to have randos walking around a movie set. We had this talk on 9/11 with Simon Shack about the obscuring smog. It wasn't smoke. Anyway, it's not necessarily a side issue. I'm just pointing out that your assumption needs to drop to zero. The burden of proof is not yours if there are any hoax indicators. And in this case, there are plenty. So before you can try to posit for us here, oh, it was real, well then what are you standing on besides I believe? Besides I trust the screen? What peripheral information do you have? And again, someone said, well, everybody's asking questions. Yeah, everybody's asking questions from a mainstream perspective. So their answers are going to be MSM+. They're being directed towards Trutherville. They're not being told it was fake. Charlie didn't die. That's a minority opinion. And only a few people who regularly put out content begin with that premise. And what I'm doing here is I'm working on getting that perspective its own platform. We are not alternative media here. We're not alt programming. This is called the Deprogram for a reason. And now more than ever, whenever you have an event like this, you can see why it's important. We don't have the same starting point that they do. And their starting point, I'm talking about the truthers, is mainstream. And they're in a subset of the mainstream box. Duet Say Less says they often do these events on weekdays to reduce the number of people who may be passing by coincidence. Yes. Sneakermeister says gatekeepers are running out of baby gates. Well, what they've done here is they've created so many compelling conspiracy theories. And look, Nick Fuentes is pushing this. Like the biggest influencers on the right are all pointing fingers at Israel. So what they're doing is they're directing the people who don't believe the mainstream story or who have any doubts to, oh yeah, of course you're right, it's a conspiracy. It couldn't have been that patsy. But this is formulaic. They've been doing this since JFK. Was it really Lee Harvey Oswald? Like people are still asking that question. 60 years later, they're still asking, was it Lee Harvey Oswald? And I'm like, no, it wasn't. Stanley Kubrick shot Kennedy. In the sense of it being cinematic. He filmed it. We need to look at this as a continuation of Butler, Pennsylvania, with better special effects. I mean, imagine if they had a better squib for Trump. The ear thing, obviously, though, has some significance. Hearing, right? And now you have the throat. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? Ear, throat. These are symbolic. You know, there were symbolic wounds with JFK. And if you look at the Masonic allegory, the killing of Hiram Abiff as this character they all play, he's got these three wounds. It's like to the head, to the neck, and to the heart. And they give the initiates an explanation for what that means. So I'm interested in what the deeper underlying symbolism here is of the throat. So when Trump touching his ear, that was an interesting one if you consider that the photographer who photographed the bullet whizzing by the ear is the same photographer who photographed George W. Bush when the Secret Service whispered in his ear that a plane hit the tower. You have these overlapping themes that connect the various psyops that also need to be looked at. So you have to look at them all as fake trees in a forest of fakery. They're part of a continuous or contiguous script, metascript. Hank G says, yes, the more 24/7 wall-to-wall ceiling floor coverage this gets, the more they're trying to reinforce our minds it's real. Yeah, I would mention this before, that the reason they put him on South Park was to amplify him to the masses in preparation for this. So if you said, I never heard of Charlie Kirk, oh really? Chances are you or somebody you know now has, because they've seen him demonized in this cartoon, or at least propped up in such a way to make him a target or a caricature that, yeah, we want this bad guy taken out. So South Park had a role in this as setting the stage, making him relevant. Now the show The Tempest is it's a brilliant example of concurrent programming, because the second people are watching that on Hulu and Disney, and it's trending #1 in Japan, so they're all watching the show where this up-and-coming new Republican is going to announce his political aspirations, and he walks into the church, and again, Kirk, church, kind of a connection there in the names. So this Charlie Kirk-esque character in a church is giving a speech, and then he gets shot in the exact same spot where Charlie Kirk is shot. We're talking about the left side of his throat. So that right there is an amazing coincidence if you want to reduce it to a mere coincidence. Then he bleeds out on the ground, and then they have a scene where his widow is leaning over the corpse, like we saw with Kirk. And now I'm still watching it. The widow takes over. And Charlie Kirk's wife is taking an active role in TP USA. She said, the world are going to hear the echoes of the cries of the widow. Totally something somebody would say when their dead spouse is still warm. Esteban says, I saw that South Park episode. Yeah, I was curious if anybody noted any kind of predictive element within it. Anything else? I might have to watch it. But also, South Park had just made some video where they had Trump in bed with Satan or something. I didn't see it, but South Park had already been noticed by the White House, and Charlie Kirk had even commented it was a badge of honor to have been made into a parody. But I'm saying this is consistent as a pattern, predictive programming. Setting the stage, getting all the characters in your mental stage, getting all the issues out there so they're in your head when they do the psyop. They put Charlie Kirk in people's heads. They paint the zeitgeist. So how many millions and millions of people saw on Disney Hulu this new Republican Christian conservative type getting shot in the neck? How many people saw that gory wound who missed the Charlie Kirk thing, or maybe saw it right after? So the sum total of people who witnessed a bloody throat wound on September the 10th was far more than the people who saw Charlie Kirk. It was a lot of people. And I'm saying is that this is the parallel. The entertainment, the fantasy, the fiction mirrors the reality. And it's an echo chamber. It's inescapable, the wall-to-wall coverage. But this is par for the course. And this is a paradigm shift for those who are still stuck on Trutherville false flag narratives, blaming Israel, blaming Antifa, hitting the Q pipe. Still people doing that. But the paradigm shift is when you realize that all of your conspiracies begin with the mainstream premise, and you have to reject the mainstream premise. And to do that is to step outside of their controlled paradigm, the off-world stage perspective. And the only think tank on the internet with an off-world stage perspective is this. There's various individuals and channels who figured it out, and I'm noticing, and I'm happy about it, like Days of Noah on Twitter and others. I'm going to make a list, actually. We have to make a list of the people who have adopted the off-world stage perspective when it comes to analyzing these events. Because what our objective here is, we need to create a platform for this perspective, a self-aware demographic, a separate branch of media. I call it parallel media. First Last says, I was super aware of all the symbolism focused on the secret societies when I first learned about Flat Earth years ago, fell back into some brainwashing for a bit and sick of it. Yeah, I first started noticing stuff because of the symbolism and the secret society stuff. It makes it intriguing. And if your starting point is it's real, now you're looking at blood rituals and satanic sacrifices everywhere, which is by design. They created that narrative. I got inducted into that with like David Icke. He's like, yeah, the reason why these kids are being killed in schools isn't just to take your guns, but it's because these are blood sacrifices to feed the reptilians. And the souls go down the ley line into their temples, and it's just like, wow. They mystify it. So a lot of that window dressing is there to mislead people who notice patterns. So people who notice patterns notice synchronicities, for example. They look for deeper meaning in life. So those people are fed a certain genre of conspiracy theories that feed their biases and make them think they figured it out. But none of the approved conspiracy theories tell people that nobody died. None of them. There's not one influencer out there with the starting point that Charlie didn't die. Not one. It's uniform. The uniformity should tell you that you can't trust it. They all agree. It's the nature of the Hegelian dialectic. Yeah, they're on opposite sides, but they all agree on the central premise. And the agenda moves forward. Again, if you just got here, look at Charlie Kirk's final YouTube short, his final video. It's called Enough is Enough. Estevan says, I think I started this truth stuff with Alex Jones and people like Michael Sarion. Yeah, and I don't discount the secret society stuff, but I think we need to also kind of recognize that we have a security clearance society that runs this place. The blood oaths have been updated to NDAs. And the wool sack, the hoodwink over the uninitiated is now the black mirror. It's your screen. That's what the initiated, that's what the Illuminati use to maintain a disparity between those in the know and those in darkness. And those in darkness exist in a subjective world of competing belief systems that coexist. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's totally subjective. Anything goes, as long as you don't call it fake. But the Enough is Enough reference on Charlie Kirk's YouTube channel is proof positive. It's a staged event. There are so many coincidences. It's overwhelming to the point where the burden of proof is not on us. If you're going to say it's real, you've got to deal with the coincidences. Now, The Tempest. Okay, so The Tempest. The show I'm referring to, that where the character gets shot in the neck, is called The Tempest. So I was looking, what are the most famous quotes out of The Tempest? Which, again, The Storm. Big MAGA reference, The Storm. But The Tempest has a reference of, hell is empty, all the devils are here, which we've been seeing with all the lefties gleefully gloating over the blood of Charlie Kirk. Very demonic. I'm like, are these people even real? And unfortunately, yeah. And then the other one is the reference to the Brave New World. So Brave New World, Aldous Huxley, we're drowning in a sea of irrelevance. The info war has succeeded. But also Brave New World is Captain America, the new one where the president gets shot at while he's at the podium. Played by Harrison Ford, who becomes the Red Hulk. Like MAGA? The Red Hulk. And the trailer was released the day before Trump was shot, so Marvel Comic Universe changed the trailer out of sensitivity. You could add on to it, Harrison Ford is shot at in a theater, like Ford Theater, like Lincoln. Like the character in The Tempest, shot in a church. Charlie Kirk Church. These are other levels of symbolism layered in here. Harrison Ford's birthday, 7/13. Trump shot 7/13. Julius Caesar born 7/13. Trump was the Caesar in Caesar in the Park, who was back in 2017 being killed on stage, and Laura Loomer jumped on stage to interrupt it. And then you could go deeper. Mickey 17, another movie concurrent with the Trump assassination, where Mark Ruffalo also plays a Hulk. So you have now two Hulks playing Trump, getting shot at in assassination attempts. Mark Ruffalo's character has a blood streak across his cheek when he poses for the camera even. Mark Ruffalo's birth date, 11/22. So Harrison Ford, Mark Ruffalo, both Hulks, both take part in concurrent programming for the Trump shooting, both born on days presidents are shot. Ruffalo being 11/22. Yeah, okay, I will update the Enough is Enough card with Charlie Kirk's visage. Good one. Yeah, I'm still doing the PSYOP trading cards. Unfortunately, I had this weird glitch. And look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I pre-ordered several dozen copies of Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed, so I could sign them and send them out. I put in the order for author copies. Amazon didn't bill me till yesterday. But I'm like, okay, this is weird. When's the order going to process? And it turns out back in June, I bought some Kindle ads. I don't recall any invoices since June that these ads were running. No indicators whatsoever. So all of a sudden, less than 5 minutes before they try to process the book order, the ad account got billed. And that took enough money out that the book order did not go through. So I'm not saying Amazon conspired against my book, but the timing is really weird. So I refunded all of the pre-orders because I'm not in a studio right now. I don't know when I'm going to be able to hold inventory. So I just went ahead and refunded it. The book is on Amazon. You can go to IPS.monster. There's an Amazon link. Unfortunately, the IPS shop is going to be down for a few weeks, depending on how long it takes me to rebuild. I have a ton of artwork I think I can sell, so we'll see. But yeah, I apologize if you ordered the books. Your refund should already have been processed. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I recognize the pattern. And I think that's all small business. Esteban says, why not work from home? Oh, I can't because my how do I explain it? I can't work from home. I have a situationship there that just I can't work from home. Now, if I had it would be optimal, because when I used to work from home, I had a 24/7 live stream. When I used to work from home, I didn't have any of these restrictions, but so that's not really an option right now. But I do plan on picking up a studio here on Moon Street. I'm calling it the Moon Base. I've already scouted the location, so it's just a matter of time. But in the meantime, the store's closed, but I can still live stream. It's not a big deal. And the books are going to be available on Amazon. I don't think it'll take me more than 4 to 6 weeks. Anx G says, Fakeologist had some guy on calling... Oh, yes, he had Mr. E on. Mr. E is rather funny, entertaining. I mean, in a way, I would say he's a decent... he's a good content creator, but his whole conspiracy is that all men are women, all women are men, if they're on TV. Or maybe it's not all. I don't know if he makes exceptions. Because I asked him once, I said, I asked him in a Fakeologist chat, what's your contention about Donald Trump giving birth to Barron Trump when he was 60 years old? Because that's my issue. Because they're like, all the presidents are women. Okay, well, if that's the case, then how do you explain the children? And they're like, well, no, Barron Trump is obviously from a different father, and Melania, or a different mother. So Melania had to cheat on Donald Trump to give birth. No, wait. Anyway, it's confusing to me because Donald Trump couldn't possibly be the mother of Barron. He would have been 60. Like, when did he give birth? So now his conspiracy theory for me blows up because you're going to make these assertions, but then to back up the assertions, you have to apply what you call the ad hoc fallacy. So your basic assertion is all the presidents are tricking us and all the celebrities are all inverted, is what they call it. But then when you ask them about the children, their explanation, well, in addition to that, they're manufactured families. They don't have their own kids. Okay, well, that's a second layer of conjecture built upon the original premise that has not been established. So I reject the whole notion, just like I reject reptilians. It used to be reptilians. Esteban says, then he said Charlie Kirk is a woman, but he's 6'5". Yeah, I thought that too. I thought, okay, well, that's a very tall woman. And his explanation is because Charlie Kirk's his eyes are too close together. Supposedly, all males have wide-set eyes. All females have close-set beady eyes, small beady eyes. So if you're a woman, you've got small beady eyes. So I don't know about these generalizations. And the skull stuff is ridiculous. The phrenology is ridiculous. You know, I took a course. I was a 92 Mike, Fort Lee, Virginia, at the Pierce Mortuary College. We had to do a short course on forensic anthropology where, you even put together skeletons. But you're supposed to ascertain the category of the skull. They have these broad racial categories like Caucasoid, Mongoloid. They have these broad categories based on differences that are somewhat universal among broad swaths of the population. And of course other differences, torso lengths to femur length. There's reasons why, and these are all environmental adaptations. So they only use one skull overlay for all of the people. So this skull overlay goes over this person. That's a male, that's a male, that's a male. Well, I'm sorry, but you're using a very blunt instrument here. So they're not even really doing any kind of rigorous observations. Yeah, Mr. E looks at the pelvis size. He's like, well, look at the hip to the shoulder ratio. And they use that as an example, which is not a good example. If you've been to a gym, you would see the variance among people. Hip, shoulder ratio. And when it comes down to it, and you'll see this with a lot of female athletes, these shoulder muscles develop rather quickly. And they're the most obvious obvious display of someone's muscularity is if they're a bit wider in the shoulders. And so it creates this illusion of, it creates the greater shoulder to hip ratio. So you could say that's, quote, manly, but it's not evidence that the person is a man. No, Mr. E is no longer faceless. He has come out, which is I don't know. I think it gives them some more credibility, to be honest. But as far as their methodology is flawed, so I have no use for it, and their explanations don't make sense to me. It's quite an echo chamber, though. But also, okay, one more point here. I believe he was mentioned by one of the tabloids, like the Daily Sun years ago. So I happen to think this could be another one of these planted conspiracy theories, like the Mandela effect, where they set your bias. So for example, any woman with a jawline is therefore a man, Angelina Jolie. And any male with a smooth brow is a woman. So Alex Jones, smooth brow, or whatever. Or they look for Adam's apples. But their theory, here's the key word, unfalsifiable. If you say, well, this person doesn't fit that, oh, it's because they got jaw implants, or they got their trachea shaved. So every time you find a contradiction, they claim it's a surgical augmentation that hides the true whatever. So I'm like, wait a minute here. You cannot be proven wrong. If I point out you're wrong on something, you're going to say, oh, they did surgery. So if you can't prove a theory wrong, if nothing can contradict it, it's unfalsifiable, you throw it in the trash can. Same thing with the idea of Donald Trump being a woman. Okay, well, if your theory is that he's a woman, but that he didn't have his own children, and you can't explain who did, then your theory is garbage. So I consider, quote, transvestigation to be something of a fetish more than anything. And it's kind of curious, too, that Candace Owens is now the face of it because she made claims about the president of France's wife. And now she's being sued. So that could be staged, like they did the whole thing with Jones taking the fall for the school shooters. And Candace Owens could be taking a fall for a lot of these conspiracies. Not just the Macron's wife, but everything else she's dabbled into. Primarily, Candace Owens is hugely pushing the anti-Jew stuff. And again, all of this is likely contrived. You remember she was White Lives Matter with Kanye West when he was black skinhead, when he was doing the media junket as this Nazi. So Candace Owens is also married to the CEO of Parler, which was instrumental in January 6th, huge honeypot. So the fact that she's a provocateur tells me that this is all theater. Till says, Tim, can you have a stream with Faco? Yeah, actually, I had Faco on. I was on Faco on 9/11 a few days ago. Although we didn't talk about Charlie Cook much. We talked most about 9/11. Yeah, I saw that. Luigi has had the terrorism charges dropped because it's social justice. He's the good guy to the left. They're going to love it. Yeah, exactly. Do It Say Less says the digit ratio. They used to say if your ring finger is longer than your pointer finger, you're a woman. And I have that wrong finger ratio, I guess. So they said that I was in fact, Dave J. Remember Dave J? I don't know if he's still free or not. Is he still walking around free, or is he in a padded cell somewhere? He said that I was a Jewish woman. He literally had that running for months. I'm like, okay, so he investigated me. And based on my skull, I'm an agent of the Mossad. And I'm a woman. I'm like, okay, whatever you want. You believe I'm a reptilian, if you want. That's fine. Esteban says Russian Vids was big on that. Yeah, Russian Vids is faceless. So I don't trust them. Uki says you do have a Jewy hip ratio. That's the kind of stuff they say. I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? So I mean, what do I need to do? You know, and so I offered once. I'm like, well, I'll just pose nude. I'm like, well, no, it's CGI. You added that. It's prosthetic. They did that with Sylvester Stallone and Stormy Daniels. They're like, Sylvester Stallone is definitely an old grandma. And Stormy Daniels is a man. Okay, well then, if you're going to make that assertion, you need to go do the work. Do your homework, and you have to watch Stormy Daniels' movies. And then you need to go check out Sylvester Stallone's erotica stuff he did in the 70s and explain that away. So they all say, oh, it's because it's CGI or it's prosthetics. So their theory is not falsifiable. Yeah, Portal Complex says, didn't Russian Vids change his name to something Ukrainian? He changed it to Ukraine Vids in solidarity with Zelensky. And then he got embarrassed by that, and he claims, no, I'm sorry, I'm going to stop with that. I made that up. I started that rumor. He never changed it to Ukraine Vids. And now he's actually They Live Truth. Ken Before the Storm says, I think it's the other way around. Higher testosterone makes your ring finger longer than your pointer finger, supposedly. Yeah, that sounds really scientifically sound. Like real anthropology. Russian Vids did a pretty decent breakdown of the footage of Charlie Cook being taken into the SUV. And what he noticed, and I thought this was brilliant, is he noticed that the people who were recording did not record Charlie Kirk. Like, they had these people with their phones who were like basically stationed there to record and to not get any close-up footage of him in the SUV. What's up, Armin Ree? Yeah, oh yeah, I'm reading messages now. Yeah, in South Pole, we did an episode of South Pole, which is our South Park spinoff, and it was Russian vids was RV vids was in an RV, and he's going around the country spreading truth, and he's speeding down the road, shouting out truths, and he goes off a cliff. I seem to remember that episode. We stopped doing South Pole, because we kept getting censored. I couldn't even get a video up on TikTok. And I made an episode a little more recently with the Antarctica expedition. We made a parody of that, and it was all filmed on Epstein Island inside of that dome. And beneath it were these breeding stables where Elon Musk was creating these hybrids. I mean, the whole thing was, I thought it was funny, but it got censored. I don't have a Discord link on me, Armin Ra, and I don't have Discord on my phone. You know, this stuff is addictive. And I realized if I have Discord on my phone, I'm going to be chatting all day long. So I took the app off my phone. I only use Discord when I'm at home. But yeah, if you have any connections, please post them if you choose to. To me, the damning things, Enough is Enough, The Tempest, and numerous other elements to this thing raise a lot of questions. A lot of the questions that are raised are extremely valid, like they're taking down the crime scene right away, no crime scene tape. Why didn't they wait for EMTs? I don't know if that's debatable or not. I would imagine if somebody has a spinal wound, spinal injury, a neck injury, they would immobilize them first. But a lot of the questions that are out there are planted for you. So you got to be on guard for truther bait. We don't do call-ins anymore, Armin Ra. I'm kind of working out of my truck. My office space is no more, and I'm trying to get into a new space. So we won't be doing open phones until I'm in a stable situation. Which I think, I'm guessing it'll happen before November. There's a loan that I'm paying off, and as soon as it's paid off, I can just take it out again. I didn't want to, but I don't mind. It's what keeps this thing rolling. So we'll be back in an office, taking phone calls, hopefully a 24/7 stream before the end of the year. This is small business. It's not because we're censored. You know, people will cry censorship. I don't think that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with small business in a highly competitive environment. Andrea says, shouldn't there be hundreds of video cell phones of Kirk? Right. I mean, you look at any small concert or any public event, and everything's being recorded. So it's fair to say that a lot of the camera footage that we're seeing, even if it's from a phone, is plants. Like 9/11, you didn't have any organic random person on the street recording stuff hitting the towers. It was a closed movie set. And for anyone who has trouble with that, like, how was 9/11 a closed movie set? 88 drills. Look it up, NRO. Look up how many of the police cadets were used as mass casualty simulators on that day. I think it was over 1,000. And no, also, okay, there's a camera, high definition cameras all around. All we see is this grainy cell phone crap. What about the camera that was right behind Charlie's head that they took down? You can see them on camera pulling those cameras down. And so one of the guys that appeared to be shooting at him was, in fact, it looked like deploying the squib. And then he runs beneath the table and unplugs him from the squib. That's what it looks like. Well, I can mobile stream anywhere. My laptop would be nice to have here because I could take calls with it. But my laptop is decrepit, and the battery lasts less than 5 minutes if it's not plugged in. But yeah, in the last few months, I've adjusted to this, and I've determined different ways to make these live streams work, even if I'm moving or mobile. I could run this thing completely living on the streets, to be honest. That's anti-fragile. That's adaptivity. We've adapted to extreme circumstances. I don't know, Esteban, about the laptop. I mean, yeah, I suppose we could, but I don't think there's enough. I don't think we have enough support to pull that in. But like I said, it'll just be a few weeks to months before I'm into an office space. No, it would be nice to work from home. I'll be honest. I used to have total control over my place as far as like 24-hour stream. I could maintain things, but it's really kind of... No, and right now my priority would... Look, if I had money for a laptop, I would probably just move into a studio apartment. Because once I'm in my own location, my income does go up. Before I started IPS, I used to sell murals, and I still have a ton of artwork, but I don't have a workspace. So I'm kind of, like I said, I'm a little, I guess the word is throttled. You know what? I think that the PSYOP entertainment complexes issues people out terrible phones to record these events. All right, well, enough is enough. Another clue, again, check out Charlie Kirk's final video on YouTube. Just another thing to add. I'm going to finish watching the 3rd episode of The Tempest because it seems to be indicating that the assassination was done. Specifically, I don't know, there's some nuke stuff in the story. So it should get interesting. In fact, what was the deal with Iran? Okay, I got to do some research. I'm finding more parallels now that I think about it between The Tempest and this thing. And one more point. The Tempest, we're talking about Shakespeare, paralleling what happened with Charlie Kirk, is another example of this being the world stage. You know, that's the Shakespearean, the Globe Theater. And the world is a stage. This is all Shakespeare. First Last says, I found your channel yesterday. Are you Christian? No, I'm not religious at all. I reject religion. I mean, I think church is great for people. It works for them, fine. But I also reject media. I see media, church, and government as synonymous. And I think that the God constructs, which is what they are, you know, people may say, well, I believe in God. Well, which God? And there's this assumed superiority that their God is the right God. And I reject all that. And then, of course, because of that, I'm a heretic and people hate me. So it's like, okay, your whole belief system is designed to make you hate non-believers. So I just reject the whole thing as a mess. I think that media, religion, government are the same. And if that offends, then those who are offended can go ahead and make their decisions. But I'm not going to change. No one's going to convert me. All right, have a great day.